From childhood to adulthood, I had a nickname of Superfluous because my sister gave me at her house. She never called me by name. My sister just calls me redundant, call me so long that even my parents forget my real name, they also call me redundant. Just because I'm a person who shouldn't exist in this family, my parents clean the house today and decorate more items to be cheerful and brilliant as soon as the fireworks downstairs have just finished. My mother in the red grey ribs, hugging the person with a bright smile on his face, standing up to welcome the distinguished guests. It was too embarrassing, because the grandparents had come from afar, invited. Today is the engagement day of her sister, and her parents warmly welcome her future parents-in-law to the house. The engagement ceremony of the sister holding her fiancé's hand intimately, the smile on her face did not stop blooming. The brother-in-law today is so handsome and beautiful that I also liked it. While chatting, my brother-in-law's mother suddenly asked me if my house. Another sister, why can't I see it? Everyone in the room stopped. The fastest responder was my mother, grandmother. Laughed and shook his head and said redundantly, he didn't know what, even your engagement day wouldn't come back. No, I'm here, I'm here. On the ceiling, staring at each person present in the engagement ceremony room at the end of the brother-in-law leading his sister into the break room. Rest, and I was floating on the ceiling and looking down. My sister, who had just sat down, looked up at her brother-in-law with melancholy eyes, and said that Hein Non Non must hate you so much that she didn't bother to attend our engagement ceremony. I really admire. Obey her when she lied. But her face did not change clearly. She herself told her parents to definitely prevent me from appearing. Now that she can casually say these words, Chi Hein frowned mercifully, hugging her sister. She betrayed. Betraying you? What, does she have the right to hate me, the kind of person she doesn't come? It's okay not to bother others. Hearing this, I was on the ceiling screaming frantically. Everything was not like that. I didn't betray at all, but the cry. My Chi Hein forever couldn't hear that he used to be my boyfriend, but after coming to my house once, he was. Insisted on breaking up no matter how much I begged. He didn't come back. Half a month later, he announced that he was dating her. My girl, I always didn't understand why this was the case until yesterday when I got home. My parents accidentally overheard the conversation. I only learned the truth about them half a year ago, the first time I took my boyfriend home for dinner after my sister's meal. Call me into the room rarely when she talks to me with a gentle attitude is superfluous. Your boyfriend is not bad for you. I thought she was just joking later, but I found out she was completely serious about saying that after I was with my boyfriend, left my parents' house and hid me again, calling my boyfriend home again. This time, from my sister's mouth, he learned some things. She told my boyfriend that I was raised by an old man who stepped on two boats to trick his feelings. Only gave intimate photos between me and that man as proof that I didn't expect her to keep that photo in the past. If it weren't for my sister not having to go through such unnecessary things. My sister was originally a student. Excellent students, but in their final year of university, because they were in a hurry to go out for an internship, she missed an important graduation assignment. Faced with the risk of not being able to graduate so that she could graduate smoothly, she tricked me into going to the hotel and gave me medicine. Put me on your professor's bed. If it wasn't for me risking my life to resist, maybe I would have fallen into the devil's hands. That professor, after I ran away, she held those photos and threatened the professor. She ended up graduating with honors. Excellent student. Then I went home and told everything to my mother. She smiled coldly, looked at me and said that she was okay, but she was lacking no piece of meat at most. Only one layer of film is lost. Moreover, the membrane has not been lost. Obviously, my sister and daughter were born because of a sister. How about raising my child for so many years? That little thing, How did he calculate at that time? I was completely desperate from then on. I don't want to argue with my parents because of me. My boyfriend is completely angry when he sees those intimate BC photos. I suspect that I am such a despicable person. When he knows these things, he has no doubt whatsoever. The mouths of my relatives, but they share the same blood as me. How can they lie to slander me? There was a heartbroken boyfriend who drank drunk under the arrangement of his parents and was taken to my sister's bed half a month after the Kong family declare the relationship. Even though my sister and boyfriend have known each other, my parents are still not at ease. They are afraid that I will not commit myself will cause trouble. Stop me. They didn't even let me go home, forced me to live alone in an apartment near the company, saw that she was about to get engaged to them. They announced I was home so that I could witness the glorious moment in my sister's life accidentally. Revealing the secret that had been hidden for a long time, I stood stunned where my mother found me, and she cried out in panic, her eyes widening. Looked at me and said, "You heard it all." Why did I look at you with tears in my eyes, and the grief in my heart is clear. Both of them are my daughters. Why did you treat me like that? She was upset and told me that my daughter is only Chow. Of course, if you dare to talk nonsense and sabotage the engagement ceremony tomorrow, don't blame me for not being polite to my child. Desperate to come back, the studio packed my luggage and planned to leave. I couldn't stay in this house anymore. Soon there was a knock on the door. My mother brought, according to a glass of milk standing in front of the door. Seeing me open the door, she handed me a glass of milk. Just now, my mother was heavy. She drank this milk and went on vacation. Rest early, don't think too much. This is the first time in my memory that she spoke to me so tenderly. My heart, trembling, his hand unconsciously reached out to take the glass of milk and took a clean breath. Now that he thought about it, even though I knew it was medicine at the time, I won't hesitate to drink it, because when my mother handed me a glass of milk, she smiled at me. It was the first time she smiled at me. A few minutes later I started to feel sleepy. I wanted to get out of the house, but my eyelids were heavy as lead. In the end I was completely fainted. When I opened my eyes again, a pair of terrifying eyes were staring at me. I struggled to sit up. But when he found out that he was blinded with a rope, let me go immediately, or I would have called the police. He smirked, showed white teeth, erased smile, especially fierce and scary. The dazzling person was her parents. Ms. Din reported to the police to arrest them. How the memories rushed back. I realized that the man in front of me was the youngest son of the neighbor's family upstairs. Zheng Dao didn't like to talk after Zheng Tao's parents died. He lived alone here. Did he walk alone every day, never communicate with someone who everyone considers a monster? My parents are afraid of me ruining the engagement ceremony. My cousin quit smoking into a glass of milk and locked me in my neighbor's house upstairs. A fire of anger flared up in my heart, and I began to try to waved and shouted for Zheng Dao to let me go. Zheng Dao was made angry by me. He swung his hand and slapped me hard in the face. I was stunned, touched for a moment in disbelief, looked up at him. In his eyes I saw the next excitement. He took something to block. I closed my mouth and used all kinds of tools to hit me until I stopped breathing completely, and then he stopped his hand after me. Zheng Tao didn't panic. He skillfully opened the refrigerator and stuffed my body into the refrigerator, too small to put. My whole body entered him, and he cut my body into pieces with a chainsaw, and then inserted it into me piece by piece, and I was dead. It was my parents who handed over to a demon to be tortured to death, which they wished for every day was finally come true. Are your parents satisfied? I am dead. My body is still lying in the refrigerator upstairs. Soul. I had nowhere to go. I couldn't get out of this building. I could only wander back and forth between the two houses I was in. On the ceiling smelling food rising from the dining table looking at them eating without me, the smile on their faces is even more radiant. On the table full of dishes my sister likes to eat, her parents constantly pick up food in her bowl, and Tun Chi Hein kindly peel the shrimp and put it in front of her. The whole family is happy. My sister is like a child who is pampered and loved by everyone. Love as much as possible. Unlike me, the redundant is born redundant. Since childhood I have known that I am not loved in this family, but still stupid, hoping that thanks to my obedience, I could receive a little love from my parents, and now I know that I have made a mistake. How much did they not only not love me, but also hated me when my mother was pregnant with me? The midwife in the village praised that the fetus had. The best sign must be that when my son heard this news, his grandmother knelt down in front of my parents, begging them to keep it. Baby, in those years, the policy of only allowing one child was very strict. My father was one of the few people in the village working for a state agency with a stable job, but having a job also means having to follow the policy of having one child too. Preserving the lineage for Chow's family, my parents resolutely kept me, and then my father was warned and dismissed by the agency. Laughing, I was only expected by everyone when I was in my mother's womb, but when I was born I was still my grandmother's daughter, fainting on the spot. After waking up for less than a month, my father died. He hated me because he lost his good job, and he still worked. My grandmother was angry to death. My mother hated me because I lost the glory of my family. If it wasn't for me, my mother would have been able to become the wife of the director and not the wife of a subordinate of my father, because I, the second child, is still my daughter. Has become an existence that should not be in this family. At the end of the dinner, Sons Hixian had to leave, only she was left. I sat in the living room with my parents, cut the fruit in front of her, ate a lot of fruit, and it was good, so my sister said that my mother was. It's okay to be alone upstairs, but do you need to go up to see if my mother doesn't care, just pouting on her? She can. What's going on? It's best to look at the look of hatred on my mother's face. My cold heart sinks even more. I really want to tell my mother that this time she is satisfied. I have disappeared from this world and will never appear again. But it's a pity that you'll never hear my words again. My sister hesitated to say, "Mother, you're afraid of the scumbag upstairs. Bothered the neighbors." She was forever such a pervert. She said kind words with her mouth, but in fact, she was just taking advantage of me. To protect my interests. It's not that I'm afraid of disturbing my neighbors, I'm afraid of locking me up for too long. Bad to my sister's reputation. My sister always demands perfection in the eyes of her neighbors. She is forever the daughter of the family, and I was a typical spoiled child, always the perfect scapegoat when she made a mistake as a child. Every time she made a mistake, "Your fault," always blames me. No matter how much I try to justify it, no matter how much I give evidence, my mother is still on her side. Her side defended her and accused me of being a dangerous liar in my mother's bias and such protection. The most hated child in the eyes of the neighbors. To protect my sister's image, Mom took the initiative to call my father to tell him to come up. Upstairs looking for me. I feel a little nervous. I follow Dad upstairs. "You will find me." The knock on the door rang out. Zheng Tao on the side. "In the house." "Wake up dreamily. Last night, he tortured me all night until I was tired, and in the morning I fell asleep and looked. The one who killed me." My soul couldn't help but tremble, even though I was completely disappointed in my father, but I still hope you can quickly discover my body and arrest this disgusting perverted murderer. Zheng Tao opened the door to see my father. He became panicked. My father politely asked, "Cao, where is the superfluous girl at my uncle's house?" Zheng Tao bowed. "She muttered her head this afternoon," she said. "My stomach has let her go, Isn't she going back to the house, Daddy's face? I immediately darkened, and then he cursed in a low voice, "This superfluous girl is really a waste of my work, stop cao uncle." I rested and went on, and after speaking, my father left. He didn't see the smile on Zheng Sheng's face. Digging when he just turned his back and went downstairs to follow the figure of my father faded. I was completely desperate, obviously, as long as you just a little more closely, he could detect the panic on Zheng Tao's face. His abnormality, but he didn't do it, he just walked away, leaving me lying in the cold. I didn't even thinking about revenge. I didn't even expect Zheng Dao to be arrested by someone like me, even my parents wanted to. I die and disappear completely from this world. What is the value of doing so that others have to bother me? I am just garbage. A pile of horns that needed to be cleaned up and dissolved into nowhere. A few days later, one morning my parents came home from the market and discovered that the area under the building had been cordoned off by the police with a ceiling wire. They curiously poked their heads out and looked at the ashes. Whispering to my neighbor, I stood upstairs looking through the window, and curiosity was evident in their mother's eyes. I was curious to ask Mrs. Zhang, who lives at home next to Sister Zhang, "What's the matter?" and Mrs. Zhang mysteriously replied to the Zhou family. "Know how the youngest son of the Zheng family lives upstairs? You heard that he is a perverted murderer last night. The crime was caught. Now the police are blocking this place to find evidence. It's terrible." And after hearing it, my parents were extremely shocked. When they heard about the murderer, they were also scared, but in that fear there was still curiosity. My mother continued to laugh. Who would have thought that this boy would normally not say a word, but he would be so perverted behind his back? Mr. Zhao lived opposite and provided more news that he had not only killed one person, but also hid the body in the house. Everyone was chilled when they heard it, and everyone's faces showed a look of panic, and a few forensic officers in police uniforms came from above. Went downstairs carrying many things. The black bag sealed emitted a strong fishy smell, and everyone was afraid to scatter. No one wants to be involved in this bad luck in the hands of forensic officers who also hold a few more bags of evidence in the. When my mother looked over, she saw a transparent bag containing my jade ring, on which it was still stained. That blood was the only gift she gave me because she bought a ring that was too small. My sister didn't wear it properly, so it fell into my hands. I looked at it. Seeing that her mother's eyes showed a look of panic, she opened her mouth and spoke silently. It was impossible for her to suddenly rush in the next second. My mother was almost about to touch my relics when my father suddenly rushed to stop her and pulled her away. "What are you doing?" My mother was panicked, looking at my father trembling, saying that it was her words, and before she could say it, my father covered my mouth with his hand. Floating on the tree next to him, I could see very clearly in my father's eyes. I couldn't hide my amazement, not only my mother. "I guess you also guessed something." Dad pulled Mom to an empty corner in the little garden. Stern warning: "Don't suddenly take trouble," my mother replied in a low voice, "but it's a ring of superfluousness. I can't mistake it for hers superfluous." Why did my father open his mouth full of contempt? Who knows? If he dropped it before leaving, we should avoid trouble. It is more complicated if we let our neighbors know that we have sent surplus at people's houses, so who knows, they will talk about it. Why? My mother was about to say something, but my father interrupted me impatiently. "No, but what's more, she's really a 1,000-year calamity. It's not so easy to die. I'm really a calamity. But even if it's a disaster, I'm dead now, and when my parents find out the truth about my death, they'll be happy. I'm glad that the disaster is finally gone, and from now on, no one will bother them anymore as soon as my father decides to take her away." The hotel stayed for a few days to hide his face, and his phone suddenly rang. Hello, we are the photo investigation team. Chow Yang at the police station. I quietly clung to my mother's back. I was able to cling to the body of my relatives to leave. After receiving the call, my father took my mother to the police station, and I also followed her and went there. When the staff was about to take them into the interrogation room, my sister also appeared, and saw that my sister was immediately agitated. Here is my sister with a warm expression looking at her mother, complaining to her mother that she is superfluous after all. How did you get taken by the police here? My colleague doesn't know what crime you think you've committed. You're so disgraced, my dear sister, until now, but you still don't forgot to blame me for a deep sisterly love. I clung to my mother's shoulder and watched her smile faintly after the police took action. They announced that the victim was suspected to be me. My mother immediately fell down, my father was stunned, and my sister. I frowned while the police comforted them to calm down. My father suddenly asked the police, "This will affect. How did it come to us?" The female policewoman was surprised for a while. Maybe she didn't expect to encounter such a father-daughter is brutally killing. They not only do not grieve, but also worry about whether they are involved, which is funny and innocent. Sisters love. I can't wait to go to the police house, complete the formalities, and let them leave. The three of them rushed out of the gate suddenly. A policeman ran out to stop them. "You can't go," my sister angrily asked why she didn't finish the defense. "Why did the police officer solemnly say that now we suspect that you are involved in the murder case? Hey, please cooperate with us to investigate the three people who were separated and put into the interrogation rooms for questioning." On my mother's back, follow her into the interrogation room. The atmosphere in the interrogation room is very serious. My mother seems to have tense hands. Her legs trembled incessantly, and the policewoman seriously asked if you had conspired with Zheng Dao to murder Chow Yin Nan. "No," my mother looked up in fear and said. "Policeman, oh, no, Nan is my daughter. How can I harm it?" the police questioned loudly. "According to the testimony of the suspect Zheng Tao, the person who pushed the Nan enchantment and handed it over to him to deal with it. Is that so?" My mother panicked. She didn't know what to say. What kind of words? She kept justifying, saying that she only took me to Zheng's house to stay temporarily for a day, and didn't tell Zheng Dao to kill me. But when the police asked why, she couldn't say anything on my father's side. So did the dirty things of the family. Chow family, how could they reveal it because of the accusation of Truyen Dao, my parents, from the identity of the victim's family? Directly turn into suspects before there is evidence that they are not involved in my case. They will not be able to leave the police station. Only my sister's sister, declaring that he did not know anything about this at all and also had alibi evidence after being bailed by Tun Chi Han. Sister was released to meet son's Hixian sister. I immediately kneaded into his lap. "Chi Xian, I am so scared, let's go home, son." Chi Han pulled her into the car and I clung to her shoulder. As soon as she got into the car, son Chi Han eagerly asked her what was the matter after all. The real victim was Yin Sao. My sister nodded disdainfully, saying that it was true that the thing that harmed the dead was still didn't let others. Yan son's Hixian looked at her in surprise. The next moment, she realized what she had just said and hurriedly explained. "I likes Hixian, I'm just because I'm too angry, so I'm just missing a word." Son's Hixian didn't say anything, but the look at her changed. I sat next to him looking at the two people with different thoughts and laughing quietly. The old neighborhood couldn't hide the secret. After the police came to my house to search the victim's news, I spread throughout the area that a group of elderly people had gathered in the little garden to talk. I was at home watching them talk. Mr. Zhao mysteriously revealed a shocking news everyone had Have you heard that the daughter of the Buffalo family was killed by Mr. and Mrs. Chow themselves? Everyone was amazed that it was their biological daughter. How could it be? Mr. Zhao said contemptuously. No, then why were they taken to death? They were their daughters, they should have been. The victim's family is true to this statement, making the neighbors who are still suspicious completely believe that my parents have killed me. Mrs. Zhang sneaked into everyone, thinking that Mr. and Mrs. Zhou were good people. I told everyone not to look. On the outside, they are polite, but on the inside, they are very evil. Their second daughter has been tortured since childhood, and there is such a thing. No wonder, Mrs. Zhang used to have a good relationship with my mother, so everyone believed me when I was 8 years old. When I was 8 years old, I was bullied by my sister. I resisted a little. My sister immediately told my mother and she hit me. It wasn't enough to be angry in the middle of winter. She made me wear only a thin undershirt and pull me out into the hallway to catch demons from morning to night. Don't let me cry, otherwise she will chase me away. Out of the house, I didn't dare to cry obediently. The devil was there. While Mrs. Zhang walked through the corridor, she glanced at me. And saying that one sentence to this day, I still remember clearly that if you are to blame, you are not good when you are reincarnated, and I don't know. It's worth it to bring that place to suffer, just because I'm not a boy, but I have to suffer this bias. I don't have the right to choose when I was born if I knew in advance that I would be treated unfairly just because of my gender. Born no, I won't. Sons Hixian quarreled with my sister. He told her that he wanted to postpone the time organizing the wedding. This made her extremely angry. She questioned why everything had been arranged now. You said to postpone the wedding. How much do you want me to lose face? Do you know how many people will laugh at me at first? Sunday Chihan still patiently advised, but after being bothered by my sister too much, he exploded. He shouted that his sister was. But you are still worried about your honor, Chao Shi. Of course, how can you be so cold? My sister stood still. It was hard to believe looking at Sons Hixian. Once the crack had been opened, it was difficult to restrain Sons Hixian from looking at her and questioning whether my parents will be able to go out in just 2 months. They still haven't cleared the charge of murder. If the wedding really took place, it was really a loss of face. My sister looked at him stunned, reflexively about to say something, but Sons Hixian didn't say a word. His face was cold, and he left. My sister ran after him, but he didn't turn his head, and expression on his face was even tougher than when he broke up with me. I understood that this relationship of my sister was completely complete. Broken things in recent days. I have been watching my sister and her mood is getting worse and worse. I see her taking the phone. But I didn't expect that she would call my number again after no one answered the phone. She realized that I was dead. Keep throwing the phone on the sofa. In the past, whenever I encountered something unhappy, she used to scold me a few words to vent her anger. Even when you're so angry, you even strangle me. You talk nonsense. Look at your miserable look. But really, my eyes are gone. I'm redundant. Sister didn't even have anyone to be angry with. Sons Hixian for not contacting my sister for a week. Originally calm as she was, now she became more and more frustrated. She tried to call Sons Hixian, but found out of her phone number that had been blocked. Seeing the anger and despair evident on my sister's face, I laughed. In the past, I was broken up incomprehensibly. I also have the same expression. My sister is different from me. She is more confident, not like me. From brought her low self-esteem. She put on makeup and redressed herself and hurriedly left Sons Hixian's house to find him and say the story of me following her there. The person who opened the door was Sons Hixian's mother. Saw that the smile on her face suddenly disappeared. She came here again. My sister tried to laugh and say, "Auntie, Chi-hein has been at home for a few days. Now I have some work at home, so I can't contact him to make a phone call, and he doesn't pick up the phone, so I came to." How could it be that it was unreachable, but it was obviously blocked, Sun's Hixian's mother said coldly, and there was no longer a look. Enthusiastic as usual. "If you have a job at home, just take care of the housework first. Hein has been busy lately. Let him go on a business trip with his father, and it will be a few months before he comes back." To hear the expression on my sister's face that I can't hold back, I said warmly, "Auntie, my wedding and Chi-hein will take place next month. How can he go on a business trip? When at this time, if you don't understand, I'll tell you directly, your family is so cold, we dissatisfied as long as I am alive, you don't expect to step into my house." After speaking, "You are going to close the door," my sister warmly once held her hand, but she threw it away. She didn't have the slightest mercy and said, "If you still have a little shame, don't tie the melon with Chi-hein anymore." The girl was massacred, her parents were arrested, but she was still worried about getting married. She was the kind of scary woman. She finished speaking, a little mournful, closing the door. Even though my sister was standing outside the door crying and begging, she still didn't move. I stood there silence. Seeing her suffer at this time, she seemed to be suffering a great injustice, but that was not enough. The sister who endured was still far from what I had to go through. Sister didn't know that when I was dug up by Zheng the demon, I was in so much pain and helpless that they were obviously right downstairs, but ignoring my cry for help, I may not be able to calculate the pain that has passed, only hoping that when I am close to the dying, desperately crying out for help, they can help me a little. Even with a stranger, they are not so desperate. But they didn't do it, they just stayed downstairs to let me be dragged into hell by the devil. The case is still being investigated by my parents. I still haven't been vindicated. My sister still can't contact Sun's Hixian, he seems to have disappeared from the world. How to investigate the truth of the case? The police came to my sister many times, asked her to cooperate and support the investigation. Rumors in the company began to spread that I could no longer hide my death, and a few curious colleagues took advantage of it. During the break, I haven't asked my sister yet, I heard that in the recent serial murder case, one of the victims is me. Is it okay for your daughter to be real? You don't look sad. So my sister's face gradually darkens, but unfortunately, the other colleague didn't realize it and continued to ask if her wedding next month would still take place. This question immediately ignited anger in my sister's head. I had never been so offended in her life. She took the cup. The coffee on the table was thrown directly into the face of Heap. The scene of chaos was immediately confused. That day, she was summoned by the company's leaders and temporarily suspend work. Saying that it is temporarily suspended, is actually advising you to leave the company yourself, just a company. I want to pay severance compensation. On the way home, I bought a lot of wine, I drank alcohol and didn't forgot to scold me for being superfluous and harming the seam. It was worth dying when I was alive. You never treated me well. It doesn't mean that my sister is dead, but she continues to curse me for being cold like her. Deserve to be happy. She drinks more and more, her consciousness becomes more and more vague. She constantly calls Sun Chi-hein, but her number had been blocked for a long time. How could she call in anger? She threw the phone towards the balcony. After throwing it, she regretted it again. She rushed to the balcony to pick it up, but her consciousness was no longer conscious, half of her body leaned out. The phone railing could not catch her whole body, and as soon as she was about to fall, she suddenly came to her senses, trying to grasp. Cut down the railing, Try to climb up. I just stood next to silently, watching you struggle in pain since childhood. You haven't done it since you were a child. Even the bowl has never been washed. It can be said that her weak limbs look like she is about to lose the strength to hold on anymore. I unconsciously reached out my hand through her arm, and so on, right in front of me. She fell. She was still struggling. Hands in despair, eyes wide open, looking up. It seems that you can see my image. We keep looking at each other like this. I watched her fall with blank eyes, and a loud noise sounded as she fell to the ground with fresh blood coming from her head and mouth. Flowing non-stop. My sister died right in front of me. The news of my sister falling downstairs reached my parents' ears. My father was completely. He was stunned. He couldn't accept the sudden death of his most beloved daughter, my mother. I was so scared that my blood pressure soared and I had to be taken to the hospital. After being admitted to the hospital, I was still by my mother's side when she woke up. I immediately came to interrogate her and record my mother's testimony. Her lifeless eyes looked up at the ceiling and muttered to her all was my retribution. My sister's death was too big a shock for my grandmother to no longer hide but confess the whole thing. The person who came to record my mother's testimony was a young policewoman. She looked at my mother in surprise and asked her what she meant. Drugged Zhou Yunyan and handed her upstairs so as not to ruin Zhou Xinyan's engagement. That's right, my mother didn't. She confessed everything she regretted and looked at the policewoman and said it was all retribution. We gave up on Chao. Nan gave up her own daughter and the heavens took all our children back to punish us. Looking at the tears of pain on my mother's face, I had no emotion in my heart. I didn't know that her tears were because heartbroken by the death of her two children or because she was heartbroken by the punishment of heaven, but there was one thing she said. I don't think it's wrong for God to be fair. She doesn't want to have this child. God helped her get her children back. Then for the rest of her life there was no one to take care of and comfort her. After being thoroughly interrogated by the police, Zheng Dao confessed the whole truth. Knowing that he could not escape the crime, he thought that he would drag two more people into the water, so he accused my parents of also participating. In the case, Zheng Dao made a request. He wanted to meet my parents. He said that as long as he met them, he would tell them everything. Details that the police wanted to know. In order to confirm the details of the case, the police agreed to his request as soon as it was received. Believing that my father immediately refused this offer, he panicked and questioned the police. How could you take me to confront such a cold-blooded murderer? Do you know how scary this is? No, I laughed. You are also afraid. But did you ever think that when you handed over your daughter to a demon with your own hands, I was so scared and horrified? Not under the objection of my father's resolution, the police finally agreed to let him not participate. My mother was silent. After a long time, he suddenly said, "Let me go." My father looked at her in surprise and said she was crazy. It was a murderer who didn't blink. She wasn't afraid. My mother looked at him without saying anything, and quietly followed the police. Leaving the small interrogation room, there was only a table of four, two policemen, my mother and Zheng Dao. When I walked in with my mother interrogation room and saw Zheng Tao, my soul trembled. I was so scared that I wanted to scream. I wanted to run away, but I wanted to know what Zheng Tao would say to my mother, and even more wanted to know my mother's thoughts at this time. I wanted to ask her if she was sorry. I cringed, clinging to my mother's back, not daring to look directly at Zheng Dao, just look into his eyes. Painful memories. Before I die, it will come back to my head, making my soul unstable. The policeman sitting next to my mother beckoned. She began to speak in front of my mother, nervously asked Zheng Tao, "Why did you want to see me?" Zheng Tao his smile kept his smile and full of evil, She didn't want to know how her daughter was before she died. Why didn't my mother say anything? Her whole body trembled. Zheng. He realized that, his eyes showed a look of satisfaction. He took the initiative to tell me the details of killing me. I hit him with a baseball bat on her daughter's head, poking her with chopsticks. She kept crying and begging until she was no longer awake. She even called her mother. She forgot who brought her here. She still calling mom to save my child. My mother couldn't stop trembling. She muttered, "Don't talk anymore, you devil." Ha! Ha ha! Zheng Dao laughed loudly. "I am the devil, why not? I am an angel who came to save your daughter. You are the devil. It was you who handed her over to me. I only helped her get out of the misery. The executioner is really you. Killing people is me, but the delivery person is the woman who holds her tight. She is my husband. My grandmother is not guilty, the guilty are you." Zheng Tao's constant accusations caused my mother's blood pressure to skyrocket. Seeing that my mother showed signs of instability, was worried that something would happen and immediately took her away. And the early end of this dialogue, Zheng Dao confessed everything and was guilty of. The name that my parents had to bear was also washed away, and the two of them returned to the old neighbor's residential area when they saw that they were all stay away. Even a basic greeting is not everywhere my parents pass. There is always someone behind me pointing and talking about the cruel old man. Long Ya is so cruel and fierce. He doesn't eat his child, but he gives his daughter to the pervert. The terrifying person was the couple of the Zhou family who were so dark that their second daughter was killed by them. Now the eldest daughter is also gone. It is true that the reward for sowing the fruit is not to be too cruel. I do not. My parents had to endure scoldings every day, and some even dumped rotten garbage at the door home to express their indignation at them. Such a life my father could not bear anymore. He advised my mother to move. But my mother stubbornly said to move anywhere, even this house. Who dares to buy an umbrella? I didn't die in this house itself, but the crime scene right upstairs is still the house I lived in when I was being alive. Can also be considered a ghost house, let alone I died in such a tragic way. No one dared to buy our house. My mother didn't want to leave. The next day my father packed up his luggage and returned to his hometown, leaving her alone in an empty room, crying quietly. After his father returned to his hometown alone, his life became extremely difficult throughout his life. Living under the care of her mother, she has never even washed her clothes, let alone cooking or doing housework now. Not only did he have no one to take care of him, but he also had to go to the fields to work every day to maintain his daily routine. It can be hidden forever even though my hometown is far from the city, but my family's story is still transmitted to it. Curious about the reason why my father suddenly returned alone, now that he knew the truth, everyone stood behind his back and cursed Mr. Worthy of Life. Even the 3-year-old children in the village, when they saw my father, scolded him for a bad thing, and my father's heart was full of resentment. But he had nowhere to go, and the rest of his life was destined to live in isolation, loneliness, and being. The world despised me just like what I experienced as a child after my dad left. My mother stayed home alone every night. Was made by a nightmare that made her love in just a few short months. She seemed to be 10 years older, not only in the pancreas, but also in the pancreas a lot, and the head is also full of gray hair. Auntie, I made an appointment to see my mother. When I saw my aunt, I almost didn't realize why she peed pancreas like this. My mother replied shyly, I haven't been able to sleep well lately, so many events have suddenly occurred in my family. Who is it sleep well? My aunt sighed. In the past, I advised you and Lao Zhou, even if you don't like it, it's still your biological son. Even if you don't like it, it's still your biological son. I can't treat non like that. As a result, Why don't you listen now? It's good, this sentence is open. The water bar immediately ignited the pain in my mother's heart. What did she put her head on her shoulder and cried loudly, my sister-in-law was wrong, I was really. Knowing that I was wrong, I shouldn't have treated Non like that. If I had listened to her that day, things wouldn't have come. Every night I dreamed that she came back to find me. She asked me why I didn't save her. Why did I put her in the hands of the devil? I sat next to her and watched her cry silently. Even though she regretted it now, I didn't want to forgive her. No one could make it back. Let go after experiencing such pain, let alone knowing that her regret was not for what she had done. For me, in the past, she only regretted the outcome she had to endure, and now my aunt comforted her a long time ago, and finally my mother just temporarily calmed down. Auntie said, you go vegetarian with me every day, chanting the Buddhist chant of the path of nature, and a little merit for the children to pray that in the next life they can be reincarnated into a better family than my mother, as if they have found a place to support. She nodded her head in agreement immediately, and she was very resolute. When she returned the next day, she immediately found a temple and went in to live there. Seeing her put on the dragon blue robe, the hatred in me suddenly disappeared, so that she could spend half her life living alone with oil lamps is also considered the biggest punishment for my grandmother. I am tired of this life. My coming here is the end of the hope that in the next life I can live happier.